Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Asad Lalji. On behalf of Avid Learning, Vogue India, and the Italian Embassy Cultural Center, Mumbai, I'd like to welcome you to a very special evening. This evening is also being shared through Facebook Live, so I'd like to welcome all our friends online who've joined in. As many of you know, Avid Learning is a public programming platform and the cultural arm of the SR Group. Since 2009, we've conducted over 900 programs and connected with over 100,000 individuals. Driven by the belief that learning never stops, Avid's multiple formats like workshops, panel discussions, gallery walkthroughs, festival platforms create a dynamic and interactive atmosphere that stimulates intellectual growth across the fields of culture and heritage, literature, art, design, and innovation. Avid's vision is to invite more people into the conversation about the arts and culture by deepening multicultural learning experiences through sustained partnerships and diversifying our programs through new spaces, formats, and approaches. In light of this, we regularly collaborate with the consular presence in this maximum city. We've done considerable amount of work with the IIC over the years, and with the aim to increase awareness of Italian art, design, culture, and also to promote exchanges and discourses between creative industry practitioners from both countries. We are also very happy to begin what we hope will be many collaborations with Vogue India, so welcome. And now to the task at hand. Welcome to Cine Couture, costuming for the camera. We have leading practitioners from the field of Bollywood, Hollywood, and Italy who are going to share insights about a little more about what they do. This panel is the closing event for the first edition of Fare Cinema, the International Week of Italian Cinema, a program that promotes quality Italian film production abroad. Our experts today are award-winning Italian costume designer Daniela Ciancio. Almost, right? National award-winning Bollywood couture Neeta Lulla. And they will be in conversation with Vogue India's editor-in-chief, Priya Tanna. They will discuss the intricacies of designing for the screen from Bollywood to Hollywood to regional Italian cinema and discuss processes and productions of costume design, its roles as a cinematic device, and its larger part in shaping cultural ideologies. But before we begin, I'd like you to do one thing: remove your phones, put them on silent, and start using them. Get social. Our handle is @AvidLearning and hashtag is Learning Never Stops. We look forward to a fascinating discussion. And before Priya comes and takes over, I think she would like to share a short video, right? So.
I'm just going to start off with a few references to films and costumes. Anybody seen the movie Austin Powers? Yeah? Now imagine in his avatar as a hormonally challenged time-frozen spy if Mike Myers' character wore gray suits instead of all the technicolor disasters that he wears? Would it tickle your intrigue? Would the movie still mean the same to you? Imagine if the very dapper and debonair James Bond, if the very dapper and debonair James Bond took on all these oversized villains and seduced nymphets wearing track pants and hoodies, would you still drool? Imagine closer home if Rekha looked at you and seduced you to In Aankhon Ki Masti Ne, wearing a cotton sari. Would you still be mesmerized? I'm thinking no. That for you is the magic of costumes. Costumes play an integral and irreplaceable role in translating the vision of the director and his film successfully. From the couture-laden film Phantom Thread, and if you haven't watched it, I would really urge all of y'all to the confectionery-laden world of Wes Anderson's Grand Budapest Hotel, all these movies have been very effective because of their costumes in creating fantasy and authenticity for the film as much as they are in depicting the ethos of the film. In fact, it's almost hard to imagine movies like Memoirs of a Geisha or, for that matter, even Devdas without thinking about their costumes. The costumes seem almost as critical to the film and as alive to the film as the characters do. But you know, today we're not just going to talk about the magic of costumes. Why you will never forget Audrey Hepburn in her black Givenchy shift. Why you will never forget Aishwarya Rai in her ethereal ghagras in Jodha Akbar. We also want to talk about how clothes support each frame in a film via their color, texture, silhouette. How they help to establish and provide a context for the film, whether it is in establishing a relationship between the two characters in a movie, to depicting the socio-economic status of the protagonist and others around, to the era, time, weather, day of the week, everything. To help me understand the language of film design, I'm going to invite on stage two eminent costume designers who between them have over 500 films, I believe, and 50 years of experience. So please, come on over as I call out your name. I'm going to first introduce you to Daniela Ciancio. I hope I have got that correct. An award-winning costume designer who's been working for cinema, theater, opera, and television since 1994. She's worked on a number of well-known Italian films and has also collaborated with several foreign cinema and television productions. She was the costume supervisor for Mission Impossible, and maybe we can talk to her about Tom Cruise rather, in the coffee break later. That's a conversation that must be had separately. You know, Daniela, while I was doing a bit of research on today's chat, I tried to catch some of La Gran Bellezza. And can I just tell you, can you do whatever you did in that movie to all the men in this country? I think we need to have many more gems in this country. So seriously, that was just amazing. If you guys haven't watched that movie, I would urge each of you to watch this movie, La Gran Bellezza, to see the amazing work Daniela has done. She also teaches costume design in a variety of schools and institutions. So Daniela, please come on stage. My second guest this evening really needs no introduction. Neeta Lulla, prominent costume designer, fashion designer, who's had, I think, more than 400 movies to her credit. One of the most trusted costume designers in this country. You may have seen her work for sure at some point or the other, right from Tal, Jodha Akbar, Devdas, Mohenjo-daro. I mean, it's amazing, the range of work that she has put out there. Along with Subhash Ghai, she also launched the Whistling Woods, the Neeta Lulla School of Fashion. She has received 4 national film awards, as well as numerous industry awards over the years. So please give a very big round of Indian welcome for Neeta Lulla. So ladies, my first question is to both of you. What inspired you? What led you to take to costume design as a vocation, as a career path? I've heard of, I almost have, every girl I meet these days wants to be a fashion designer. I don't meet that many who want to do costume design. So what drew you to it? Daniela?
First of all, thank you very much to invite me here. It's a great pleasure to be with both of you here and to have this discussion. Honestly, I don't know exactly when I start to do this job, because I always work on me, on costume, when I was young. Because for me, to dress myself, it was something really near or what I feel that day. I can change my style every day, because for me, it's really near how I feel that day.
It's a form of expression of yourself.
Absolutely, yes. And that's why I think that costume is not only put a t-shirt or trouser or dress on someone, but it's to show his soul and his character and his, where he came from. And of course, we work in following the vision of the director. We help him to make this vision possible, and help also the actors to find the right way to play their role on the great beauty. When I showed my idea to the actors and to the director, the actors start to think, okay, now if we can use this influence on my clothes, maybe I can play with the cigarette in this way, and with a little bit 60s influence, and because we work together now, we have to find the right way on the character all together. This is really important.
Right. Neeta, what about you?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Priya, for that lovely introduction, and thank you, Asad, for having me here. My funda was very clear. I grew up on magazines, I grew up on films, and what really caught my eye was this beautiful, gorgeous gown in all gold that Zaxus Batena had made for Parveen Babi. And I said, someday, I want to do something like this for a film. And as luck would have it, I joined college and started studying fashion design, not costume design, and got an opportunity to work on films. I started off as a fashion choreographer for 2 years and did a lot in fashion and styling and grooming. Suddenly I get this project to do on costumes for a film, and I said, why not? And took it up. My first outfit was the biggest disaster that could have got me into thinking, okay, archive this part of it and just get into styling and fashion design, and that's about it for you, Neeta Lulla. But I took up the challenge. It worked for me. I got a call from Sri Devi, and I think when you put out in the universe that, there's something that you really love and you have a passion, and for me at that point in time also Sri Devi was a huge passion. I watched her on her films and the charisma and the magnanimity that she projected, and I used to think one day I want to design for Sri Devi, and I got the opportunity to do to style a shoot for her. And I did that with a basic fabric and just basic earrings. And in those days, there were no brands that you could just lift and, say, okay, wear these shoes, wear this outfit, whatever, and get on and shoot. So I went there and she said, where's the costume? And I said, this is it. It was a small potli. And she said, this is costume? I said, yes. She was wearing rollers in her hair, and I just told her, don't take it off. Tied the entire drape on her hair, put the earrings, and took a mid-shot, because we would even think about how the shot should look like, because we used to multitask back in the days. And we shot it, and the photograph was absolutely brilliant. It went to the Hall of Fame, and they used it for, it was the cover of Movie Magazine, and then they used it for the Lux ad, and then there was no looking back, because then Sri Devi said, would you design for Chandni for me? And I was like, yes, for sure. And that's how it started.
That movie was absolutely seminal as far as style in Bollywood is concerned, and only you could have made her dance in the Alps in an absolute chiffon sari in those weather conditions.
But I must be honest on that, Priya, because you know, I was a newcomer. I was all of hardly 20 and maybe 19, I'm not sure. But people before me had already started working on the project. So there were two designers prior to me and senior designers who I looked up to. And in those days, there was nothing like, you know, one person doing one film. There could be 3, 4, 5. So I got the opportunity to do a couple of clothes in that for her. But even that was like a huge landmark for my career.
You know, you've spoken about all the good bits. The journalist in me is gonna get you to talk about the disaster that you first wanted to chuck. I'm gonna ask both of you all a little bit down the road about those sartorial disasters we all are mentioning. So let me talk about the starting point. You all are both given a film. What is the starting point after you've heard the script? What influences and inspires your thought process? How much of it is the director's vision? How much of it is what you absorb from the film and how you understand and you want it to go? And how often are there differences and how do you sort that? Daniela?
I read the script more than one time. The first time that I read the script is more like if I read a book, because I need to take from the script the first time all the influence, all the emotions. And after that, I start to make a really big research. For me, it's really important to put in me as much as possible all the image that I can. I made my research, it depends of course from the movie, it's a period or if it's contemporary, but in any case I start to find a lot of different influence from painter, from photos exposition or internet, Vogue, of course, and you know, I try to take as much as possible from everywhere because I think that I need to put in me all images possible, as much as possible, because only in this way I can try to find the right balance.
But I read somewhere that when you were doing costumes for a mini-series on National Geographic, on Mars,
yes,
you actually went to science researchers for the authenticity of the biosuits that you created.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about it. That just sounds like a fascinating amount of effort that goes into creating spandex.
Yeah, when they called me for that movie, I thought, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this. I never touched before suit for the astronaut, honestly. But what I've done is I went through all the new research on the real research, on the new suit that they are studying for the next trip on Mars, because they really are preparing this. And there are a lot of different kind of suit that they are preparing, and some from NASA, from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and so on. And of course, I studied every single details of the clothes, because of course every single items is really important for something. And also I studied everything from the reality, but I always must keep in mind that it's a story, of course. And also our actors must be always a hero, more or less. That's why they need to have their human part, but also they must look like a hero a bit.
Yeah, so the fantasy has to meet the reality somewhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And all the details serve for that.
Neeta, what about you? So what's your starting point?
I think I have the exact same philosophy like Daniela has, because when you start your initial foray into a project, what you do is you take the script, you read it, and I also read it for the first time like I'm reading a story. Then I read it the second time to understand and visualize the person, the characters that are in the film, because when you're doing costumes and you're taking up an entire project, you need to feel each and every character. Then the third time I read it again, so that I can get kind of nuances and I can start putting in, notes of what I think the character should wear in terms of colors, in terms of a look. What comes to my mind then and there. And then I sit with the director, and because I believe that the director is the artist who has a plain canvas, he has visualized something, and all his technicians are basically his paint brushes. So they need to be guided as to what colors he's looking at. Therefore, I understand his perception and perspective of what he wants to do. And then I sit with the DOP and the art director to understand what are the kind of colors they're going to be using, what are the kind of colors they want to use in a particular scene, which for me seems tricky. For example, either it was Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam, the song Nimbura, or it was Devdas, the blue sari, where she is in a background of red. So depending on what Nitin Desai was thinking, or the DOP was thinking in terms of how he wanted to shoot it with warm lights, the color intensity differs. And then it's the song, and then you're looking at the colors that you want to use for the song and stuff. So yeah, you need to get into research like that. Then there are certain projects like Major Saab, which was all about the army and costumes for the army. So you go into that zone and you do your research. So I went to NDA and I went to Pune, did the entire research, got a lot of stuff made from there for Ajay Devgan and the entire unit, the entire cast and crew as well, because we, at that point in time, our director was like, even we should be wearing something that looks, part of the film. So whether it's shoes or whether it's jackets or whatever. And and when you have directors like this who want you to feel, then your research has to be absolutely apt. And I think when you're doing costuming, predominantly more or less, as a technician, these are the basic rules that you follow. And I'm so happy to hear Daniela also is doing the same kind of research. And I think it's
right.
It's the same.
So it's hugely collaborative. There's so much research. There's so much thought process. It's not just about putting clothes on a protagonist or on the characters. There's an absolute method to the entire madness.
No, there is. For example, when you're doing research, today this is one opportunity I'd like to take to tell everyone around there that the research doesn't happen only when you're sitting on the internet and taking pictures from Pinterest or Wikipedia. There is a lot that goes into it. So please, libraries, talking to people, understanding, like for Devdas, I actually went to Calcutta, visited a family, spoke to them, sat and looked at the lady serving food, understanding how she was talking, the way she was holding her sari, because those gave me the nuances for Aishwarya. So that's very important.
Also, I think I also like to go through the period image, not even if I'm working on contemporary movies, right. Because sometimes you can find really interesting suggestions, and also sometimes the patterns of other period help you to change the shape of the body of the actors and help him to become the character.
Right.
And this is something really interesting, I think.
Right. So that actually brings me to my next question, that when you're doing a periodical or a historical movie, how much creative license do you really use to surpass accuracy? What are the creative freedoms you can take? Or do you not? Is the job to stay true? So like when you did Jodha Akbar and, how accurate? Is accuracy key or is impact key? What is it that you're looking for?
For me, it's impact. Actually speaking, I've done a lot of cheating in Jodha. So it's not
Please tell all.
As long as you can make the characters look believable, as long as you can create the magnanimity on screen that's required, as long as you can make it look authentic and beautiful, not garish. And that comes by understanding even the lighting, the kind of lighting that's being used. You need to go all out, because when you're doing period films, there's only that much data that you have. You do not have too many pictures. For example, you'll have a couple of paintings that you might find, but that is the interpretation of the painter or the artist. Right. So you're going into a zone where you're going blind. But picking up from there, reading about those characters, and creating what you believe, because again, it is an artist's interpretation of the costumes. It's not something that somebody has seen. I mean, if it's like a film that you're doing, which is say a 1950s interpretation or a 60s interpretation, every information is there. Photographs are there. Even when you're doing a film like Gandhi, there is information. But films like this, there is no information, so you go in blind. And when you go in blind, you can either go garish or you can go stylized and believable. So that is the thin line you walk when you're doing films like this. And also when you create a look of this sort, what's very essential is that the character is portrayed beautifully by the actor. So the artist's comfort level in wearing those costumes also is very essential.
So my next question to you really is, moving from fantasy, I reckon it must be really hard, as is with fashion. It's hardest to convey simplicity in fashion and to do it well. It's hardest to convey minimalism in style and do it well. It's hard to do reality. It is hard to have your protagonist in pure cotton saris looking like a regular housewife than it is to dress them up in big costumes. How difficult is reality from fantasy for you, or is it not? When you're designing, is it easier just doing someone who is a larger than life character who you can dream big with, or is it tough? Is it just easier doing someone whom you put in everyday real clothes?
What I normally use, we have a sort of method for work. No, it means to make yes, a research and try to find the right character and so on. Using everything is possible to making is credible. This is something really important of our job, no? To make the character really credible. Not we don't recreate the real life. We create some new character, and we need to made him credible. Right. But for me, it's I don't know if honestly, if for me it's more or less it's the same. If I have to create something in the fantasy or in the reality, because the really important things for me is to create something in which the people can trust.
That's credible, believable.
Yes, believable.
So actually that's interesting, because your character, so like I come back to the movie Daniela styled called The Great Beauty, La Gran Bellezza. And the central character is a flamboyant Italian man whose name is Gambardella?
Jepp Gambardella.
Gambardella. Brushing up on my Italian as we speak. And he wears these beautiful yellow jackets, and he has, I think, a little pocket square. And he almost seems, it's a real character, but with an larger than life fashion sensibility. So tell us a little bit about that process. That man had the most beautiful wardrobe in all of real or fantasy Italy. So tell us about that.
In this story, the story is about him, and all the different kind of part of societies in which we will see him. It means that in this movie, more than in another one, all the extras, they were really, really, really important. Right. And all of them must be fitted in the right way.
Right.
And for Jep, I need something really special, no? Because he worked in really a lot of different kind of people. That's why we need to make him always. You must always see him.
Right.
And in the story, in the script, he went from Naples. That's why I decided to use for him a really typical pattern from Naples of the jacket. And normally the men in Naples or in Capri, the island near Naples, in the summertime they always wear white trousers with a white shirt and pale blue jacket. I decided to use the same, this is inspiring me a lot, but I used the really colored jacket, yellow, orange, really red, and on neutral base, on white trousers, white shirt, and all the color that he wear, he has always in his pocket square.
Yeah, I saw that.
I was also inspired by Kennedy family, the elegance, and I mixed all the references, and also from the 18th century. 19th century, sorry, with white socks and double colors shoes and Borsalino hat, and I mixed that everything to find his character.
Lovely. Neeta?
So, as we say that it's most difficult to make a basic white shirt, that's the most difficult. In the same way, to create believability is difficult because when you're doing a film, believable is the key factor, but a little bit of magnanimity and larger than life is also very important.
Sorry to interrupt you here, but I want to talk about this with context to Ash and what you did with her in Raincoat versus what you did with her in Devdas and Jodha, because that's the perfect example of how both are equally believable.
So I think to get that right impact, it's very important that you look at people, you observe people, you pick up nuances, you pick up their kind of dressing, you pick up the kind of shoes they wear, and the ability to be able to mold that, to create a character that looks believable, that looks real, is very important. There was a film that I did called Virasat, and the one actor was very glamorous, but within a believable space, and one was wearing
and Tabu, Pooja Batra.
Yeah, Pooja Batra, and Tabu was wearing. She was from the Gaon, so from the village. Now Priyadarshan wanted something that was cotton, but he said, "But how can we make it different?" So I said, "You know what? What if we use big checks, bold checks?" And that was actually what I picked up from what I saw from Tamil Nadu. I saw it in Chennai, and it kind of stood out in my head because I'd never seen saris like that. They were checks of like 2.5 by 2.5 inches, and they were fantastic. So we used, through the film, we've given her that, and it created an impact because it stayed in the minds of people. Even today, in 2018, when people talk about Virasat, they tell me, you know, those check saris was something else. And I also haven't been able to create them, but it created a real character.
Right.
So things like that are the larger than life aspect, but then you have to make them look simple.
So, you know, basically you also have a commitment to your audiences. I don't know how much of that you guys keep in mind. So when Clark Gable famously did It Happened One Night, the sales of undershirts plummeted because he was bare-chested. When Marlon Brando starred in Last Tango in Paris, he wore these rugged, tight T-shirts. Please, most men don't try. And the sales of t-shirts went up. It became a crazy trend. Close to home, I don't know how many of you all watched that movie, Bunty or Bubbly. So there were Bunty and Bubbly stores all across Delhi, in horse cars. People saying, you want Bunty and Bubbly salwars, we will sell it. So what starts off just as a costume sometimes takes a larger than life of its own and becomes a trend. So do you keep in mind the audiences? Is there any attempt to sort of seduce them and set a trend?
Honestly, no. I don't think about if the clothes of the actors wear can be a trend. This is happening in Italy on The Great Beauty because I received a lot of email where the men can buy this jacket and where I made this, and if they can buy. I received a lot of this kind of request. But honestly, when I prepared the clothes for the character, I just think about how to create this character in the right way.
Yeah. So for you, it's the authenticity of the character, the script, the movie, and then if it takes its life, then it does. Neeta, I'm imagining it's a bit different for you because this is Bollywood. And I can imagine every bride coming to you with some strange movie film reference request. I hear it every day from every designer I talk to, so I'm sure it's not this black and white for you.
In fact, it's that black and white for me too.
Is it?
Yes, it is. Because when I get into a film, I don't get into making a costume because, okay, let me make this a hit so that, I can get more orders on this. It doesn't work like that for me. In fact, I've lost a lot of films because I don't do just the glam that somebody wants to wear. I go more for authenticity of the character. And there's one mantra that I believe, that I can create a character through the costumes. If my character wears it with comfort, and if she's comfortable into it, and she can carry it off with ease, I think that is what hits. And my commitment to my audience is that I create something that is visually beautiful, because I believe we all go to films to forget our worries and to forget. It's a magnum opus that you see of dreams, and you want to believe what you see, and you want to see people you love, and what you want to perceive of yourself and your life. So to make it that believable, there has to be an amount of characterization and an amount of glamour, and walking that thin line is a difficult part. And then to think about, okay, let this outfit become a hit, and doesn't work.
So that's not your reference point either. That's not your starting point. Okay, both of y'all, can you all tell me which has been the most challenging stroke elaborate project you guys have undertaken, and tell us a little bit about what made it so challenging.
For sure, The Great Beauty was a really challenging project.
More than the biosuit?
That's why I don't know exactly what I can answer, because also the Mars was something completely new for me, even because I never touched something about astronauts before. And honestly, I never watched a movie about that. That's why for me it was really, really new project. And they were really interesting because on The Great Beauty, I can focus much on the people.
Right.
To understand exactly what the people had in the mind. And this is something that I really like in the psychological way, and show this through the costume.
Right.
Especially on the extras. And Mars was really interesting for another point, of course, to understand other kind of materials. And how they works, some other things that you can make not with fabrics, but with hard materials, metal or everything. Because in the story sometimes they used to close the gloves into the suit and so on, and that's why before I have understand how they works in the reality, and second I have to find a way to repeat this for the movie. And it must be credible, because of course the people must trust in what they watch, but also because we wait the approval from the NASA.
Right, wow. For you, Neeta, I'm sure you have quite a few.
I wouldn't know where to start and say which is the most difficult, but I think I have this connect with the guy up there who doesn't give me things easy. So every time I've started with a project and I've said, man, this is such a difficult project, I don't think I'll do something more difficult than this ever in my life. I've gone on to an even bigger project, which when I look back, say, I don't think I can do this ever again. And then bam, comes another project which is even worse. So when I did Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam, I said, Neeta Lulla, your career expires right here. You can't do anything more than this, because suddenly everybody had woken up to Hum Dil. Just because during Lamhe and Chandni and Joda and Khuda Gawa, there was not so much that people spoke about, because there was not so much media, social media, whatever that happened at that point in time. It was very low key. And then with Hum Dil, I think the entire media woke up to it, and it kind of scared you. You said, now what? And then came Devdas, and I said, okay, now I need to retire because this is it. And then suddenly I do a Hollywood film, and then I said, okay, Devdas happened, Hollywood happened, now what? Now nothing, and then comes Joda. So I guess the learning never stops, and the challenges never stop, and it's fantastic.
But tell me about an outfit that sticks out as being really elaborate or difficult for you to have put together, or just took, at that point it just seemed like the most elaborate outfit you had created. Come on, it's easy, it's Bollywood.
It's not easy, because there are, see, when I worked on Roop Ki Rani Choro Ka Raja, I had done some 300 pieces of metal carved out in a specific design. I had feathers done on it, and it was very, very elaborate. So I don't think, I didn't think I would do anything more elaborate than that ever, because it took 10 days of filming. So every night tassels were falling and the pieces were breaking, and you were working through the night and then back to shoot in the morning. And then came Devdas with the finale garment where she's running down the steps, and it had to be, we had done a cotton sari, and then suddenly Mr. Bansali decided that he wanted something larger than life, and then working on that, getting it ready from between 11 in the night to 7 a.m. in the morning to get that sari ready, which was like almost 15 meters long, trailing. And then I thought that was my most difficult. Then going into Joda with all that jewelry and using metal and creating brocade on mull. I thought that was difficult. And then doing Mohenjo-daro in like 15 days flat, creating looks and creating characters and creating headgears. So I would sit on set and probably start making the headgears and make the headgear within 2.5 hours. So I really don't know, because I've never taken it as one of my most difficult outfits. I've always considered the challenge as bring it on. I love it, and I can't say anything.
Is there any dream project that you guys at this stage? I mean, you've done so much and you've come so far. Anything specific that would excite you? Daniela, maybe a Bollywood movie for you?
Oh, I would love. It's going to be a really good new experience.
New for sure. Anything that would excite you at this stage? Anything that you look forward to in terms of a film? Maybe a genre that you've not touched, that you haven't done? Anything at all that would excite you? Or you look forward to doing? Or working with any specific director or a specific actor,
Yeah, as you say, Bollywood's really interesting. I would really love. Because I always like to change everything and move and, try to understand exactly how it works in another country. Right. Because changing every time is something, it's a part of our job, and it's something that I really love. My son and my daughter are really a little bit stressed about that, but now they are old enough to understand. And yeah, there are some directors that I like, really. One of these is Xavier Dolan. I like his work a lot. And I don't know exactly, honestly. I'm looking for a good, beautiful project in which you can dream.
Right. Neeta?
I think I'm also looking for a beautiful project, but in science fiction. That's the one thing I haven't done, so would love to do it.
Maybe both of you should swap places.
Yes, I was quite jealous when she said NASA, and I'm like, okay, that's beautiful, because there's so much to do in that, and work with so many different fabrics and materials. I think what's similar is the fact that we're both into costume design, which means working with different materials and working with different things, whether it's metals and silicons or feathers or flowers or whatever. But in costuming, when you amalgamate everything and create these new processes and new styles, I think that's what makes it beautiful, and that's what keeps you going.
Yeah, right. I totally agree with you. Really.
So great. There's this exchange that can happen right here, right now. Yeah. My last question is really, any advice to others who would like to follow your footsteps and do what you guys are doing? Give us the good news and the bad news about wanting to be a costume designer.
Honestly, I think that no one can know exactly how it means our job. It's not only bright, it's not only something that's shining. We work a lot of hours for a day. We work sometimes 14, 15 hours a day, and sometimes it's really bad situation under the sun or in the snow, or really, really bad situation, and with a lot of stress, because you need to have always, you must look sometimes calm and quiet, and not always is simple, and because you have to support the director, but you have to have a relation with the actors, and you must try to bring them in your idea, and to share with them what you're thinking about the character. And also you need to have a good relation with your department, but they must work in the right way. And sometimes it's not really easy, especially in the project a little bit bigger than, and it means a lot of stress. Honestly, when I worked on Mars, one night I wake up during the night, because my heart was too much strong. Yes, yeah. And I was, oh my God, Daniela, calm, relax, because sometimes the stress, the level of the stress, it's really, really too much. Right. And I think one important thing to be a costume designer is you must be curious. Without curiosity, it's impossible.
I mean, that's actually the most important thing for anybody who wants to do anything that is creative. Curiosity is your starting point. Never be afraid of asking too many questions. Don't mind your own business. Just go out there and search. This constant hunger is really what drives you to knowing more and learning more. Neeta, what about you?
So I say this purely because from my point of view, I've studied fashion, and I think what's taken me to where I am today is the fact that my techniques are very strong, and the foundation to anything that you want to do for a long time and pursue it with a lot of focus is the fact that you need to have a strong grounding of and knowledge of the subject. Therefore, education in the fashion business is most important. Education, understanding where your calling lies, whether it's design, costume design, whether it's styling, whether it's writing, whether it's photography, whatever. But study the core of fashion and then get into the business. And I've been teaching for the last 26 years. I've been teaching fashion, and I've always said this to everybody who wants to pursue it. It's not glamour. Glamour is the last thing that you see. It's to do with a lot of hard work, a lot of focus, a lot of reading, observing, understanding what you're studying, what you're reading, what you're educating yourself through visuals, through libraries, through people. It's very essential. And life is not a bed of roses. When it's like any other tough job. It's like any other career. It's not just being seen on page 3 or on a paper or in a magazine. If that's the goal, I don't think this is the place to be, because there is so much work to be put into this field that it's amazing. And like Daniela said, time doesn't matter. We're working 16 to 18 hours a day, and even that is not enough. Sometimes on set I say, damn, I wish it was 48 hours a day. But that's the kind of passion that you need, that, time doesn't matter. And only then can you get just about there. But still, you have to keep your eyes and ears open. Creativity will only come when you do not cease to learn. I think you need to keep learning, and you need to keep brushing yourself all the time.
Well, thank you. Both of you guys have been an amazing, co-speakers, and it's been amazing talking to you, and I feel I've learned so much from this session. Are we opening it? Yeah, does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask these two incredible ladies?
I'm Piyush Gugari. I'm a product designer from National Institute of Design. I'm currently here in Mumbai. I am a Bergman fan, Ingrid Bergman. And I hope you have seen his Seventh Seal, where he has characterized death. If you have to design a costume for death, what would be your approach? It's not a live character. Bergman has wonderfully characterized death in his Seventh Seal. If you have to work on a project to design a costume for death, what would be your approach?
So I mean, you're talking about Ingmar Bergman.
Yeah, Ingmar.
Ingmar, not
Sorry,
Ingrid.
Ingmar Bergman, yeah.
Wrong sex.
Sorry. Question is for both.
Either of you all watched the movie to Neeta?
Good evening,
Daniela.
Piyush. That's a fantastic question. I think when you talk of death, you talk about oblivion. Though there are so many theories about death, afterlife, the most important thing is to go with your theory about death. Are you going to look at it as a positive or a negative? I would look at it with a garment that starts with all black and goes into something that's a lot of shimmer, a lot of glitter. Because I think when people talk about that, they say there's an afterlife, or that you go to heaven. So that's a newness, that's a new horizon. Therefore, that's how I would look at it.
A celebration of the afterlife.
Celebration of the afterlife.
Great. Sorry, yes.
I wanted to get a sense of your department, like tailors. Like, what does a department in India consist of, and is there any difference in Italy?
Sorry, I don't understand. If you want
He wants to know the strength of your department. How many tailors do you have? Your production unit, what's the breakdown?
Okay. First of all, in Italy, we don't have the production designer. This is, I think, something different. For sure with the American movie. I don't know here, maybe, but in Italy, the costume designer, there is also only the costume designer and the set designer. We don't have the production designer on top of us. We speak directly with the director. And we help him directly with the vision. How many persons we have in our department depends from the movies, of course. For sure, on Mars, for example, I had my first assistant, my costume supervisor. I have the local costume supervisor because we shot it in Budapest. And I had the key costumer and another key costumer for the split unit, and a lot of costumers. Three was always with us. The other one we choose when we have more extras, especially because all the hard part that the actors wear on the astronaut suit, they need two persons.
Right, to help them put it on.
Yeah. And between one shot and another one, they need to sometimes to remove because the inside they have a fan, a battery for light, for breeze.
It's hot.
Yes.
It's really hot.
Yeah, and also because otherwise the glass start to be wet. You know, it's a lot of stuff inside. That's why they were a little bit heavy.
Right.
And also I had the main cutter, and I had some other when we need, not always. This is Mars, but in the same times we can work on the other movie more little, and I can have just Italian one, and we can have just the assistant, the cutter, and the trainee, or the costumer. Sometimes the trainee, sometimes not. Depend from the movie. We are not always in the same way.
Neeta?
So it definitely depends on the movie and the magnanimity of the film, what it requires. So under me, who is the head fashion designer, the main technician on the film, I would have a first designer, a costume designer who assists me, my first assistant. Then a costume supervisor for the secondary cast and the crowd. Then we have about, so I can tell you about Jodha Akbar maybe, because that was a huge production. Then we had about 4 people, 4 assistants, one to handle only the pagris, one to handle shoes and accessories, one to handle only jewelry, and then we had 2 other assistants who handled the crowd in terms of checking on them to get ready and stuff. For the secondary cast, we had 2 assistants more to handle the cast, and that differs because you don't need them every time. They're not on set all the time. You need them only at times when the entire gamut is on set. In terms of the main cast, you have one for the actor, the main actor, the male. Then you have one for male, main actor, female, and then you have the dressmen. So the dressmen can vary anywhere from 6 to 20 at a given point in time. And then you have you outsource the crowd clothes. So sometimes you're making 500 soldier costumes. So you outsource it to somebody who has a huge factory, and the main costume clothes get made at mine. So I kind of designate at least about 30 people who are only making the main lead costumes. So that's how it works. I mean, there's a lot of outsource that we do.
And I forgot to tell you that on Mars I also had the aging department.
Aging?
Yeah.
Yes. That just looks after you and like sort of makes sure it's authentic. When you get older as your character?
No, you kind of age the clothes. They look worn. They look old. So you dip it in chai pani, or you
to look soiled and dirty and used.
No,
and
to
worn.
look vintage.
Yeah.
To give it the vintage feel. or sometimes you kind of hit it on stone or you brush it with stone. So that's all the cheating that we do.
That's fascinating.
But on the astronaut suit, it means also to use color on the art part. You cannot, otherwise they can be crushed. And they need to find a way to paint in the way in which they look aged.
What do you do about blood? I've always wanted to know whether it's ketchup.
That's makeup.
That is makeup, right?
Yeah, and this shoot, they made with sugar.
Oh.
It is sweet.
Things we'll never know.
It depends which kind of blood. If you have to put, it's makeup, but if you have to eat, they made with eating color and sugar. No.
Fascinating. Yes?
No. Tailors are different. I just said, I mean, 30 tailors for the main, and then you outsource depending on the number of clothes that you need to make. So, yeah.
Any more questions? Asad?
Is there a difference between costuming for camera and costuming for the stage, the theater? Or is there?
Oh, yes, there is.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. If you think about costume for theater, you must think about the distance from the seats and from the stage. That's why you have to work on more on the shape and work on color in another way. For camera, you have every single details are really important. On stage, you have to work on the fabric also in another way. You have to think in which way you can give the right atmosphere using other technique.
And the lighting is so different, right? So the impact is also...
Lighting is more controlled in film, but stage it's not.
Right. Sorry, that was... Yes? Yes. Yeah, that's interesting. Do you upcycle costumes? Do you make things out of coconut fibers?
So I can give you 2 or 3 things that I can speak about on sustainability. When you design for stage, your clothes need to last at least 2 years. So the kind of fabrics you use, even if they are synthetic, they need to be sustainable for usage. That's one aspect. Second aspect is using fabrics like khadi, which I've just done in my film Manikarnika for Kangana. We've used khadi for a lot of characters in the film, and we've created, though you cannot see it, I mean, you cannot feel the sustainability, but using those kind of fabrics and creating a kind of information around it when the film releases is going to bring you more towards sustainable fabrics and understanding that you need to use this. And you can see the textures, you can see the feel differently. However, a lot cannot be seen on film, so there's not much you can talk about in terms of sustainable fashion for films, because that is only more towards you experiencing it and feeling it.
Daniela, do you have?
No, I agree with you. It's it's something the way in which you use on stage and camera. It's different, and it's something that you have to feel.
Right. I think somebody behind. Yes. Yes. Hi.
Hi, I'm Akriti. I'm from an organization called Satyaja, and we just talked about sustainable fashion and how it's been changing a bit. But I wanted to know, like, what actually happens to the costumes, you know, these wonderful costumes that you create. What happened to it after the movie is done? Like, for 3 days?
I think I know the answer to this because I've asked everyone.
Okay.
Isn't it the producer who gets to keep them? The scary part is, what does he do with them?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it just goes in the trunks. Like, even I've worked in a movie before, but it just goes inside the trunk. Like, what happens to it? It just stays there forever. I mean, what's the point? I don't understand that.
Sustainability to that, and there's recyclability to that. There is, for sure. We use it in such fantastic ways in the next films that you won't even notice.
So it comes back to you, right? Or it stays with the movie guys?
No, it doesn't come back to you, it stays with the producer. And sometimes, I should break the myth of all the glamour. The actor has to wear it at least for 10 days in a row. Of course, they get laundered, but then they get so ruined that you can't do anything. They're just thrown away. Then sometimes you get the clothes. So I'm happy to say that I have like 3 of Devdas outfits, and I have a couple of Jodha outfits, and a couple of Tal outfits, which I'm keeping for my archives. So some of them you get to keep. And
yeah, but Neeta, what about the male producers? My question doesn't end. Is it their family that's wearing any of it? What really does happen? I've never found the answer.
Commercial films, possibility, yes. But even sometimes those other films that you do, period films or fantasy films, the jewelry is gone or whatever's kept. I mean, why not? You're paying for it, so might as well make use of it.
Even Sridevi's feathers in Roop Ki Rani? Okay.
No, those were finished.
Next question. Yes. Ladies first, sorry. Sorry, I don't understand. How do you, given the long hours, how do you all manage a family life and work? Again, if you know the answer to this question, I want to know. These are such lovely existential questions. I want to know all these answers, man. Come on, ladies.
Okay, so this question keeps coming to me all the time, and I just say that I think there's someone there guiding me all the time, because my family has been very supportive, but because if it was not for them, I wouldn't have studied fashion. And I was never wanting to do anything. Fashion was like a long thought process which I didn't even think about, and I just wanted to kind of do my 10th and finish off with it and get married and settle down so I don't have to study. But I come from a very highly educated family of my in-laws, and they said that you have to do something, and they made me do either fashion design, they said, or they said cookery, and I opted for fashion design. And things got better and better, and I got interested in this, but they were very supportive. And the beauty of it was that when I started work, I started from my own home. So I was there constantly, and because I got married and had kids so early, I was around. So I used to go to college with my son, and then when I was working, I was at home all the time. So I think the major formation years that I was required to be at home, I was there because I was working with that many machines in the house, about 6 machines in the house. Yes, in-laws. And I think I've been blessed to have in-laws who've supported me through my work, and my husband who supported me through my work and still does. And always I wasn't the nagging mother to my kids that you have to study, you have to eat. There was a relationship of, listen, if you're going to do this, if you don't study, you won't be able to move ahead in life, and you'll be stuck in a limbo. So that was the kind of conversation that I used to have with my kids, even when they were young. And I think that kind of helped me move forward and helped them become more responsible. And they always saw me working. My daughter used to come to sets with me till she was 5, and suddenly I realized she was almost an assistant. And when I stopped her to come, because I didn't want her to get more into styling and design than study. So I think when you have people who support you, and the most important thing is that I went with the flow. I didn't think about charting or a timetable for the day, and that helped.
Daniela? Yeah, my parents really supported me, and something that I have to always say thank you to them is they helped me to dream and follow my dream. I was quite terrible when I was in the Lyceum. And because, it was the age and I want to study only the things that I love and not the other things and so on. But after I start to study fine arts and I follow my soul and everything went okay. And yeah, they always supported me a lot. And this is something that I try to do with my son and my daughter too.
That's amazing. I hope that answers your question. What about, there was a gentleman who had a question? Or are we good? Anybody else? Sorry, yes.
Hi. I actually had a question about, when costumes sometimes capture public imaginations and then they become sort of fashion trends, or I'm thinking of Audrey Hepburn's LBD and, like you mentioned, Bunty or Bubbly's Salwars. I mean, then they take on different contexts in the real world. So can you comment on that? And if you have had any costumes that have sort of made that transition into the real world and into fashion?
Yeah, I think when some image start to be an icon, some actress start to be an icon, it means that all things has worked well all together. Not only costume and actor, but also camera, photography, because also the way in which they shoot. It's important, I think.
Yeah, actually, it's really interesting, the question you've asked about life and art, You never know when that tipping point exists. Like, Audrey was already Audrey Hepburn, and everything she did was being followed, and everything she said was being, read. And everything she wore became larger than life. I'm not entirely sure if that shift would have had the same impact on someone else. But I think, a trend, a film's look becoming a trend, is the coming together of so many things, and not just an outfit. It's the right person wearing it, it's the right time that they're wearing it in, there's an authenticity to what they're doing. Of course, it's visually beautiful and appealing. So I think it's actually many things that come together. Neeta?
I agree with you on that, Priya. But I differ on one aspect, that it's not about just a popular actor wearing the outfit. My saris with sleeveless blouses and whites and the saffron for Sri Devi and Chani became a hit. Lamhe, a lot of her outfits became a hit. Of course, she was Sri Devi then. But then when I did Dar for Juhi, she wasn't such a big actor then. I think her foray
I think it was a Yash Chopra movie.
Yes,
in
so
that case, it was the director.
It was
because he had the
magnanimity of the film, like what you just said, the lighting, the portrayal, the projection through the director, that made it so big, and it made it, something that people wanted to follow as a trend. So her off-shoulder blouses became a big trend. Then Gungat Ki Aar Se from Hum Hera Hi Pyar Ke. Even then, I think that was a classic case. By then she was a star. But the way it was shot and stuff. So I would say in my case, there have been a lot. But what really, sometimes I'm wonderstruck about this, is the fact that one particular outfit that I never thought would make it to one of the wanted my closet list is the Nimbura song outfit. Believe me, even today I get orders for that outfit, and I'm like, still people want it. It's unreal, and they want it in the same shape and everything, which is completely unreal. It's a turquoise lehenga which is fitted up to the hips and then going flared, and it's got gold embroidery at the bottom. And
yes.
Are there cases where they throw tantrums as to we don't want to wear this, and how do you compromise at that? How do you handle that, and how do you compromise with your creativity?
Oh boy. Good. Okay. Somebody's asked the right question. This should be interesting. Of course you must.
Because our
of course you must.
Has a bad name for this. I think what's very important is for you to know your job. as a technician. Our actors are in a field which is where the shelf life is not much. Also, they have to look glamorous and they have to look fantastic. Yeah, and that creates the need, and whatever they wear and whichever film they do goes down history. So there's a lot of pressure on them. And if they're going in blind with a technician who cannot answer a particular question of why is this not fitting well here, and if I can't tell her that it's not fitting here well here is because the cross front is not cut correctly, she is going to get unnerved. And that gets pursued as tantrum. But that's not a tantrum. You need to know your job to be able to explain to them that this is the issue. And you need to be having the confidence that, okay, just get it out. I will stitch it for you in 2 minutes. Do it and put it on them and it should fit like a glove. I think that is important. And that's not tantrums.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, I want to ask a question regarding the students, the design students who come to you as interns and then they look up to you like how you did look up to your sister Tanna when you made the golden gown for Parveen Bhabi. Now when they come to you as interns and they look up to you and they want to further their career and be just like you, for example, how long does it take them and what do you give them as a boss or as a mentor that they can go ahead and be the next Neeta Lulla or the next Daniela? The Italian students probably.
So, if you see a spark in a student, you will push and support them and mentor them through. It's a two-way street. You will get if you give. If you are ready to learn, if you're ready to push yourself beyond, and if that gets noticed, because we keep noticing this, then the sky's the limit. Maybe it's because of my teaching background that I notice sparks, like very recently as well. You have students who come to you and say, I want to be you, and I want to be a designer, and you realize that even despite training them for 3 months, because we have a training session with our students for 3 months at least to understand that can they move forward with us or no, you realize that they just don't have it. So what do? I'm a very hard taskmaster. I'm not as calm as I look right now. I can shout and scream at them as well, to be very honest. But the point is that if they don't pick up, what do? If they sustain and they remain with you, despite the fact that they don't pick up, then you channelize them to actually what is their calling. Because a lot of students come without knowing what they're actually good at. So you need to hone that and you need to push them in that direction. Then there's no looking back. There's a student who's working with me right now who said, I've worked with so and so and so and so, and I'm a designer and I sketch and everything. I said, okay, computer, start, graphics, zero, didn't know anything. 1 month down the line, I just couldn't place my hand on what she could do. And then eventually, I had a talk with her as well that, look, it's not working out. And then I said, okay, let me just tell her, you're going to be the headmaster of all of these kids who are working with me. You're going to look into everything and see that things are done on time. Today I can't do without her. She is the best person I have. I can only rely on her. So they don't know what they can do, and it is up to you to channelize them and move them in that direction.
Daniela? What I think is, what I like to, the way in which I like to work with the student is to try to explain them what it means, our job. And the best things I think for me is when I realize that I can open some little light in their mind. No? And this is something important because I think I need to help them in their vision. And of course I need to teach them the way, the technical way to work. And sometimes I'm teaching a period or some, yes, depends. But the important thing is, of course, to show the movies. And for example, if I have to teach one period, I go through the movies year by year, and to show them, no, the difference. And of course, you have to know exactly what it means, the period pattern of the time, but you also need to understand how you can go out of this to find the right character. And I think you can show, you can teach, you can show the image and film and everything, but the important part is to bring them in your when you work. And in this way, they can understand and they can have a stage and they can try to understand in the practical way. Before, what I really wanted to do before is drawing, because if you draw, you can see what you're thinking, and there's something that fixes in your mind what you are studying. And if you made a research not only with photocopies, but but drawing, yes, this help you a lot.
I think that's the last question, and can I invite Stefania to come and say something?
So thank you very much. First of all, many thanks to Assad and his team for organizing that and giving us the chance to have the closing session of Fare Cinema, the first edition of the week of the Italian cinema here in India and all over the world. We're celebrating 100 cities in the world. And Daniela came all the way here from Italy because she's meant to be the ambassador of the Italian movies to India. So we've been extremely thankful to Avid Learning for this. I would like really to thank Priya, because you've been terrific. I loved all your questions. And thank you so much. Neeta, this is really great to have you here and to be there and listening to you interacting. I think this is amazing. I could have been here for hours, actually. I think you will kick us out, but it's been extremely interesting. What I learned today is that, or probably not learned, but my takeaway is that in your job, you use both parts of your brain. You have the right and the left. You really have to have very technical, very precise, but extremely creative. And I think this is amazing. There are not that many jobs that allow you this kind of freedom in interpreting something. And what we see, it's the beautiful product on the scene, on the screen, of something that came together. This is really art, what I really call art and perceive like art. What we do, as much as we can, is trying to work together with our Indian counterparts. Of course, here I represent Italy, so it's coming together and getting together. When it comes to movies, we've been extremely proud some years ago because we have an Italian company based here in Mumbai. It's called Rilievi, and they worked with Indian technicians and artifacts to create the dress of the Great Gatsby that we saw very, very wisely. So I think this is practically what we can see that Italy and India can do together. Isn't that amazing? And I think we definitely need more of that. Now, listening to you two, beautifully directed by Priya, I thought, how many other things you can do together? We might see, I don't know, the next movie, a cooperation, a co-production on the moon or Mars. And so thank you very, very much. Many thanks. 3 beautiful ladies, and I'm very happy. Thank you.